Hey guys, welcome back to Builds by Maz. This is part 2 of my DIY fireplace wall series, where I show you how to build a wall just like this. Part 1 covered all the framing, and this video will focus on how to install cement backer board. I'll show you how to easily cut and attach this HardieBacker so that it'll be ready to install the outer stone layer. Let's get started. I recommend putting something down to protect your flooring, and I had a couple pieces of old carpet. That way you can lay down and work on the cement board without damaging your floor. I'm using HardieBacker, but there are other brands of cement board available. Whatever you get, just make sure it's ½ inch thick. These also come in 1/4 inch thick sheets, but those aren't suitable for the heavy load of carrying stone. I'll be starting on this left edge here. I think it's easiest to do the sides first, and you just need to measure how wide it is. Then, transfer that measurement to the cement board. To make the cut, you'll need a long straight edge, and I'm using this drywall T-square, which is cheap and easy. You also want a sharp razor blade. Line up the T-square along your marks, and then you'll score the cement board a few times with your razor blade. For these longer cuts, you may have to flip your straight edge around to continue the score line along the full length of the board. It should look a little something like this, and the deeper you can cut into the board, the easier it will be to make a clean snap. You want to try and spread out your pressure along the board, so I've got my knee and left hand just to the left of the score line. It's sometimes easier to start at the top of the board and work down, but you'll just pull the edge of the board and it should break along your score line. No power tools are needed, and there's no dust or other mess. This is the front and back of the HardieBacker board. The lighter side on the left is a little bit more rough, while this side is more smooth. It might be a little hard to see the textures on camera, but you want to make sure you have this left side facing outward, because the stone mortar will adhere to it better. I attached the boards to the frame using specialty cement board screws, and I recommend getting the 1 5/8 inch long version. These utilize a star drive, but a bit is included for your drill, so you don't need to buy anything separately. You also want about a 1/8 inch gap between all the HardieBacker boards, and I found that these cheap wood rulers are the perfect spacers. I started by placing a couple of these rulers along the floor, and then stacked the cement board on top of it, lining it up along this left edge of the frame. I attached a couple of screws on the top just to hold the board in place, and then measured off every 6 inches along either edge. You want to make sure your screws are no further than 8 inches apart, and I used 6-inch spacing just to add some more security. Marking off all the spacing beforehand allows you to quickly drive in all the rest of the screws. You want the screw head to be just barely flush with the surface of the cement board. Don't overdrive it or you risk cracking the board, like I did right here. Also try to keep the screws ½ an inch away from the edge of the board. This will also help prevent any cracking. If you have any additional blocking behind the cement board like this here, it doesn't hurt to add some more screws, and I'm going to add a horizontal row right here. I measured off this remaining section needed for this side of the frame, and then cut another piece of cement board. If you're having trouble snapping the board, one trick is to score it on both sides. Just be sure to properly transfer your measurement on either side. It also helps to keep changing out your razor blades so you're always using a sharp one. Cutting this cement board will dull the blades really quickly, so be prepared to go through a full pack for this project. After cutting this piece to the right width, I also had to trim a bit off the top to get it to fit properly. I placed a ruler on top of the first board to give me my 1/8 inch gap, and then stacked the other piece on top of it. I also found that it was easier to just use one of these rulers to mark off my 6-inch measurements for all the screws. Each cutout might require 20 screws or more, so be sure to buy plenty of them. With the left side done, I repeated the exact same process for the right edge of the frame. With that finished, I moved on to the front and started with these edge pieces. This was a pretty skinny piece, and another trick for snapping it, you may have more leverage if you pull the longer side towards you. So as you can see, I flipped around here and it was much easier to break apart. I used my 1/8 inch spacer above the fireplace and then attached this all along both vertical edges as well as along any horizontal blocking. You'll notice I cut this piece to only cover half of this wood stud. That way the cement board next to it can also be supported by the same stud. The Dynasty fireplace I used is actually designed to be built into the structure, and this top piece right here gets covered by the cement board. So because of that, you don't want any screws in this area here. After the first few boards, you'll get the hang of things, and the process is the same for all the rest. Just make sure you're using enough screws and that you're driving them and that they're just flush with the Hardie board. If you want to make installation even easier, you can add pilot holes all along the border of the cement board. This makes the screw installation really fast and easy, and it reduces the chances of the cement board cracking. To avoid drilling into this portion of the fireplace here, I took a measurement from the top of the glass to the middle of the stud. I transferred that measurement to a pre-cut piece and then drew a line which would mark where all the screws needed to be installed. To do this top portion here, I transferred the angle of my ceiling onto a piece of Hardie board. Since this isn't a right angle, I couldn't use my T-square as my straight edge, so I just used a piece of spare Hardie board to line up my score lines. Then I could snap it like normal. Once I finished up these last couple pieces, the frame was completely covered by the cement board. But it's not done yet, and all the seams between the boards still need to be filled in. First, we need cement board tape. This is really easy to install. It self-adheres to the cement board. You just press it into place and then cut the end with a razor blade. Apply the tape to all the joints between adjacent cement board panels. We'll then be covering the taped seams using thin-set mortar. You really don't need very much for this. You can pour the powder into a 2-gallon bucket and then mix it with some water. You can use a mixing paddle like this that attaches to your drill, but for such a small batch, I just mix it by hand with a trowel. You're looking for a smooth consistency similar to peanut butter. You can add water a little at a time until you reach the desired thickness. After mixing, let the mortar sit for 5 or 10 minutes and then remix it without adding any additional water. I then use a putty knife to apply this to the cement board. Just press the mortar into the tape, making sure the gap is fully covered, and then scrape it smooth so that it's flush with the Hardie board. We'll do the same process for all the joints. If you're installing cement board in a shower or somewhere that needs to be waterproofed, you'll also want to cover up all the screws. Just apply a little mortar over the screw head and scrape it flush. But for this fireplace wall, we don't need to do that. I just focused on all the seams between the panels, making sure there was no exposed tape. This is a pretty quick process and you can get it done in about 15 minutes. You can also go back and add a second coat wherever needed. But once it's dry, you're done. The cement board installation is complete and it's ready to support the outer layer of stone. I hope this video has helped you with the cement board installation process, and be sure to subscribe to watch the rest of this fireplace wall build. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.